applause. But without any further delay, I want to bring someone real special to me. And this man is an amazing comedian, producer, compatriot in the theater with me. We produced a Broadway show together called Wildfire Dogs, the story about Marilyn Monroe right here, interacting with our two husbands, Arthur Miller, and of course, who's the other husband? Joe DiMaggio, right here. It's pretty amazing that we have all these famous people. I hope you can really focus your attention on a few of these amazing people here on the flags. They're icons of baseball and icons of entertainment. And this man, with me, who I'm going to introduce in the next few seconds, produced so many great films in the 2000s, the 90s. He did a great stint with MTV. He's a great stand-up comedian and a great guy. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Sean Lynch.
Oh man, happy birthday, Al. All right. Oh man. This is, oh man. You know, I was just saying to a buddy of mine, you know, I'm about to travel about four hours up to upstate New York to do a show. And he's like, "What are you doing it for?" I'm like, "A legend."
That's right.
Because the world doesn't make it any more Alan Actions. Like this man is clearly a legend. The thing that, you know, I had a dream the other night about you, Al. I had a dream that you took over for St. Peter in heaven, which was amazing. I just love the idea of Alan standing at the pearly gates of heaven being like, "Hey, Marilyn Monroe, you got a beautiful figure. All right, come on through. I love your films. You're great. Okay, all right, here we go." Joe DiMaggio, you were one of the greatest ball players ever. I know you had a bit of a drinking problem, but that's okay. Okay, you get in too. All right, Adolf Hitler, buddy, I'd like to let you in, but I'm very sorry, I can't. Member of the 12 tribes, I can't allow it. I'm going to send you someplace warm. Not hell, I'm going to send you to Boca Raton, where you could be a waiter right now in a Yiddish deli. That's what you deserve. It's, anybody here had birthdays recently? Anybody here? No? Nobody here? I myself recently had a birthday, turned 50, which was to me kind of monumental. And I like getting old. What do you think, Al? Do you like getting old? I like getting a little older. There's good parts and there's bad parts about getting older. The good part is you're a little wiser, you're a little more relaxed about certain things. But there are a couple of things that are a little scary about getting a little older. For instance, I have certain, I won't say food allergies, but I'll say food fears. Because you get to a certain age and somehow tacos and coffee and hot dogs, they don't really go down the way they used to. You have to have one of those proximities. Like if I'm at some place where I'm having like barbecue or coffee or anything like that, I have to be like, well, I've got about 40 minutes till I have to excuse myself. This is, it's gonna work out. Reminds me of one of the things, you know, first of all, I won't, but you know, before we get on with this, I want to give a round of applause, A, for you, the audience, and B, for a lot of our performers tonight, for performing through and performing after the pandemic, because I will tell you, that was one of the hardest things for a lot of us performers to get through. Because during that time, there was no live entertainment in New York City, there wasn't a lot of stuff going on. What there was guys like Alan who were still producing shows, producing comedy shows, producing music shows, fashion shows. One of my plays, when everybody thought, oh no, it's dangerous, let's not do this. But, you know, when you get the kind of courage that this guy does, you just say, oh, the hell with it, and you do it. And that's why a lot of us are here. It's because of that, courage, which I gotta say, I admire, you know. He does, man. Al's from that generation. It's like my dad. It's like that generation of courage that just didn't care. I said my dad was. Any Irish folks in this crowd tonight? Any Irish people here? My dad was an Irish immigrant. He came over after World War II, and one of my favorite stories that my dad used to tell was my dad always liked to, every Christmas my dad would have one too many Jamesons and Guinnesses. And he used to love to tell my 6 brothers and sisters and I how he and my mom met. You ever listen to your parents or your grandparents tell the story about how they met? And it's so much more romantic than any of your stories. Because for most of you millennials, it's just sort of like swipe, hump, herpes, bye. Whereas Whereas that generation, man, they had a real romantic. You know, like I used to love when my dad, Christmas Eve, he'd be half in the bag and he'd sit there with my brothers and sisters and we'd be like, Dad, tell a story about how you met Mom. And my dad would be like, okay, boys, I'll tell you the story. All right, here we go with it. So the year was 1959, and me and my 6 brothers realized they were giving away jobs and possibly sex in America. So we took 27 potatoes and we carved them into canoes, and we went across the Atlantic Ocean in search of jobs and possibly a hand job from a fat redhead named Molly. So across the ocean we went, boys. Yeah, there we go. And I remember my 3rd day working at the construction company called Dirt Punchin' USA. I remember my boss sent me to the bank to do the payroll because I was the only Irishman on his crew that had all 10 fingers and could count when he was sober. So I'm standing in line at the bank, right? And I'm standing in line at the bank behind the teller. I seen the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my whole life. She had red hair and green eyes and a full bosom and an ass she could land a Guinness on. And I remember thinking, Jesus, how would a poor Irish immigrant like me ever pitch the woo to such a princess? So you know what I done, boys? I done what every neat Irishman's done for 1,000 years. I took the bank statement and I turned it over and I wrote a love poem on the back of it. It said, hi diddly die, your eyes, they're like green clovers, blue diamonds and purple horseshoes. Hey biddly day, I'll lick your netheries like it's made of Jameson's. No, he didn't say it. Sorry, Papa, he did not say that. He actually wrote a really beautiful love poem, which my mom still, 63 years later, keeps pressed in a book. And it was lovely. So my dad writes this poem on the back of the check. This is the true story. My dad writes it on the back of the check, walks over to his space in the line, looks the woman who will be my mother dead in the face, gives her the check, knowing that the poem's on the back of the check. He looks her dead in the peepers and he says, turn it over, love. And he, you know, when he did that, she must have thought he was robbing the place. He's like, this isn't a beer belly, it's C4, and I'll blow you all up if you don't give me the money. We can make it work, love. What he did was, he gave her the check, told her to turn it over. My mom read the love poem, which she still keeps. And when she got done reading that love poem, she looked at my dad for the first time in the eyes, and my dad looks her dead in the peepers, and he says, my name is William James Lynch, and I'm from Donegal, Ireland. And you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my whole life. Could I please take you to dinner, love? And 63 years later, I'm the youngest of the 6 kids telling that story in upstate New York tonight. And I think that is cool, man. I think that is romantic. And I love that I come from that I was made by that kind of love and poetry. It's one of the reasons why it took me until I was 50 years old to get engaged, because I wasn't settling down until I had something that romantic. You know, because you want that. You want to aspire towards that. Like, do you ever listen to your father or your grandfather tell a story about how they met, and they're always like, well, I just gotten home from the war, and went to the county fair, and your mother was working at a Ferris wheel, and I gave her 3 roses, and 6 months later, your brother was born. No, it's sometimes the math can be hard. But I love that stuff, because I feel like, and listen, man, I'll be the first to say, as a guy my age, I'm jealous of the millennials. They're smarter, they're taller, they're better, they know more about technology than we do, but they will never have stories as romantic as the boomers and the Gen Xers have. It's just, you know, look, make your peace, because that's true. I like to think that somewhere in the future, in the year 2075, I'm not going to see a millennial at 75 years old being like, well, children, gather around and I'll tell you the story about how I met your mother. And the year was 2023, and I was at a bar called the Erie Lake Pub, and no one would hump me. So I went on to my iPhone. What was an iPhone? Joshua 2.5-376. The iPhone was a miracle invention back in my day in 2023, and you could Google on it, and you could take a photograph with it, and you could talk on the phone with it, but most of all, you could get laid with it thanks to dating applications. What is a dating application? Colin 4.56? Well, a dating application was how we got laid back then, because most of our mothers were pot-smoking alcoholics, and we all had a wee bit of autism. As we used to like to say back in 2023, a rando swipe and a hump is so much better than eye contact in a soul. So I went outside of the bar and I went onto my iPhone. I went onto a dating application called Tinder, and I swiped and I swiped and I swiped and I swiped through photograph of hoe after hoe after hoe after more hoes than Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. I swiped. But I still couldn't find a hoe that was DTF. Luckily, on swipe 975, I swiped on a photograph of a hoe, and oh, what a hoe she was, children. She was beautiful. She was bent over a Ford Fiesta in front of a trailer park in Poughkeepsie. She was wearing a random tube top with her titty hanging out. Looked like a nipple was directing traffic. And on the back she was wearing a pair of Daisy Dukes that looked like they were about to pop like a pair of Pillsbury Dough crescent rolls. And just above the crack of her behind was a tattoo that read, "Anything goes." And I like show tunes. So I swiped to the right, don't you know? And because she liked men who looked like Drew Carey's sweaty corpse, she swiped to the right too. 27 minutes later, we were making love in a Taco Bell off the Taconic. And, well, it's not like we were having sex in the front like animals. We were having sex in the handicap stall in the back like two lovers in a Shakespeare poem. And I remember as I was banging away at her from behind, at one point she turned around. Then, for the first time, our eyes met. And she looked at me, and I looked at her. And we knew. We just knew she wasn't pressing charges. And that is how your father was born. We having fun yet? We doing okay? We having a good time? All right. I hear that. I like to hear that. We need more celebrations of people having latter-day birthdays. Very excited about that. It's a strange thing, man. I love living in New York City, but I love, as I get older, more getting out of New York City. Because a lot of things about New York City are fun. This is where Broadway is, this is where all the clubs are, it's where the music thing, it's where all the coolest restaurants are. It's great, but it's also, as you get older, you realize it's just a giant sewer. And just a loud sewer. And get a little scared about it. I now live in California. I miss New York City, I miss upstate New York dearly. But at a certain point you just realize, maybe I'm getting a little too old for New York City, maybe I ought to shuffle off, and do something. I had an incident happen to me. I'm gonna end my set on this story. This is a real walloper. A couple years back, I was hosting a New Year's Eve show at a club in Times Square called Caroline's. Big comedy club there, and it was great. But unfortunately, when you host a comedy show in New York City on New Year's Eve, you have to do an 8 o'clock show, a 10 o'clock show, and a midnight show. And me and the other comics were drinking heartily between each show. So that by the time 2 o'clock in the morning rolled around, I was Andy Capp. I was just wandering around. My eyes looked like two pee-pee holes in the snow. It was not good. And as I wandered out of the club, a couple of the comedians were like, Lynch, you might want to take a cab. I'm like, hell with it, I am a cab, beep, beep. And I start wandering through Times Square. As any of you who've ever been to Times Square, they love a good drunk. People were like applauding, like, yeah, Drew Carey, yeah. And so I wander through Times Square. I make it to the A train. Now I'm living on the Upper West Side at the time. I get onto the A train, I sit down, and because I've had a little too much alcohol, I pass out. And instead of getting off at 81st Street like I should have, I fell asleep and woke up somewhere between the Bronx and Jupiter. And I didn't wake up to the sun rising. I didn't wake up to a bird landing on my shoulder. I woke up to this 16-year-old Puerto Rican kid just running a knife along my jeans and surgically cutting my wallet out of my trousers. I don't know how many of you in this crowd have ever experienced having a man cut your wallet out of your pants while you're passed out on a moving train on 4 a.m. on New Year's Day, but it's weird. You don't really know what the etiquette is to survive a moment like this. But being an Irish immigrant son from New York City, I did what any Irishman would, and I punched the kid in the face. Yes. Which would have been a great story if I was D-Dubb size or Alan size, I would have knocked him out. But when you're Michael J. Fox with a potbelly size, you don't really knock people out. You just kind of mildly annoy them when you punch them. So I punched this kid in the face, and he just shakes it off. And then he did the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. He took the knife and he flipped it so that the blade was going this way and the hilt was this way, and he starts coming at me like a Navy SEAL. Now, if I were a normal human being, I would have done the normal human being response and gone like, please, please don't hurt me, take my wallet, take my phone, man. But being an Irish kid from Brooklyn, I had the opposite thing. As any of you have Irish drinking buddies know, when the Irish get drunk and they get threatened, we all turn into the saddest version of Braveheart anybody's ever seen in their life. This kid's coming at me with a knife, and I'm literally looking at him like, in the name of me father, and me father's father before him, you shan't be taking my wallet, boy. A river dance on your testicles, you bastard.
Oh, they're freedom!
They're freedom, yeah. Freedom, D-U-M-B. And the kid had the best reaction ever. The kid just looks at me and goes, yo, white people's crazy, man. You crazy. And we laughed and we laughed. Then I read him a poem about me father, and he cried. No, I'm just kidding. I turned to the kid. I said to him, I said, look, man, take my wallet. There's like 40 bucks in it. Take it. It's yours. I don't care. Just please give me back my license, because if I have to go to the DMV tomorrow, I'm going to kill myself. And the kid looks at me and goes, faggot, and then he just runs off the train with my wallet. Now, that's not the bad part of the story. Problem was, he got my wallet, but he did not get my phone. So I grab my phone like an idiot. I walk off the train with my ripped up pants snowing on the ground, and I go on Twitter. And I'm like, I can't believe I got mugged on the New York City subway. This city's ridiculous. I'm moving out here. I'm moving to California. Everybody screw themselves. Send. And that went out to about 5,000 people. Many of them comedians that I work with. So about 3 days later, I returned to the comedy club. And a bunch of the millennial comedians that I work with decided they wanted to have an intervention for the old man. Which is sweet. I admire their intentions. But how many people here, just by round of applause, how many people here are over the age of 30 in this audience right now? Okay, we got hands? All right, cool. How many people here over the age of 30 have ever received life advice from someone under the age of 22? Like a coworker. It's weird. And you don't know how to react to it. Like, it happened to me like a couple weeks ago in Los Angeles. I'm in the green room at the Comedy Store, and some 20-year-old comedian comes over to me. He's like, you should really stay away from red meat, bro. It's really bad for you. Thanks, Bryson. I think your mom's here to pick you up, buddy. But it's weird, so this one millennial comic, after the whole New Year's Eve debacle, decides he's going to give me some life advice. He comes over to me, he's like, hey, Lynchy, I heard you had a bad time on the subway. I read your tweet. You know, if you think you have a drinking problem, you should really get this iPhone app. You just put in your age, your weight, and how many drinks you've had, and it'll tell you whether you're an alcoholic or not. I was like, dude, look at me! I do not need a 99-cent app to tell me if I have a drinking problem. At this point, I just need a mirror with a couple of lines of cocaine on it so I can drive my kids to school in the morning. Just kidding. I don't have kids. They're still in my testicles. Yeah, they're good swimmers. Yeah. They may still be in there, but that doesn't stop me from taking them to Chuck E. Cheese and the zoo every weekend. Sometimes you can just see me in Central Park with my pants down and my nuts around a merry-go-round like, people, let me tell you about my best friend. No, officer, come on, I'm with my kids. But so the kid says to me, he's like, hey, you should really get that iPhone app. I'm like, no, I'm not getting that app, kid. But I did think of this thing, and I'll end it on this. I realized that I'm not going to get an iPhone app about alcoholism, but these iPhones really are little miracles, and why not use them to their best advantage? They have cameras in them, they record, they can go on the internet. So I decided I was going to do sort of a Jane Goodall documentary about my partying with other comedians. So one night I go out with a bunch of my friends, I take my phone, I put it on video record, and I program it to only record the first minute of every hour. And for 13 hours, we raged it in New York City. And the next day, I saw the saddest 13-minute documentary I've ever seen in my time. It was like, HBO presents Where Are My Pants? The Sean Lynch story. It was crazy. And Siri actually narrated the documentary. I didn't program it, just programmed that way. And you know Siri, that pretentious bitch that lives in your iPhone? You're like, hey, where's a good Irish bar in Fort Plain? She's like, why don't you go to a gym, fat ass? We married? But so the next day, I'm playing this video that the iPhone recorded, and it's literally like, Sean Lynch, hour 1. Hey dudes, I'm just gonna have 1 or 2 more Miller Lights, 1 more shot Jameson. Let's go back to the hotel. We got 3 more shows this weekend. Let's just behave ourselves, okay? Hour 2. Sweet Caroline. Ba, ba, ba. Hour 3. Hey, you guys don't know. We're gonna see it. What? He's a musician, he's a comedian, he's dead. We're all on TV. Everybody guys around. Hour 4. I'll fight all you dudes. Stop making fun of the Knicks. They're doing the best they can. I know karate. I'll take all you guys outside right now. Hour 5. And she never called me back, bro. She never even texted me a poop emoji, bro. I loved her, man. Hour 7. Baby! 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 I just got one question for you. What? I got one question for you. And then I'm out of your life forever. Okay? Shut up. Okay? One question. Could I have a Big Mac and 2 lumps fresh butter? You want to make out? It's my birthday. Yeah, like... Hour 9. Bing bong. This is the Amtrak to Ontario. You ever do that? You ever fall asleep on a train, plane, or automobile? Boy, that's a weird experience. I had that happen once in Boston. You have the cop coming over and he's like, Sir, where are your pants? You got ID? You got ID? And I turned to the cop and I was like, hey, good morning. Oh, good evening, officer. You been drinking?
Yes.
Oh, 1 or 2. 1 or 2 what? 1 or 2 kegs, officer. Hour 11. Turn to the right. Turn to the left. Curtsy. Jazz hands. Wow. Sarge, I didn't know Drew Carey was that talented. Yeah, I'll make him in prison if they don't rape him. Hour 23. Oh, you won't like this bit. 1 at a time, fellas. I'm not a machine. Some of us need a little romance. What am I trying to say, folks? I'm trying to say I'm dating again. I'm just kidding. What I'm trying to say is happy birthday, Alan. It is a pleasure being here doing this show, and it is a pleasure being here in Albany. You are the best. You are the guy. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, Mr. Sean Lynch, everybody. Let's give a nice round of applause. Sean Lynch, great comedian, producer, filmmaker, writer, fantastic. Mr. Sean Lynch. Feel music, love it.